Hello and welcome to our third lesson in our Wheel of the Witchcraft series. Every week for an entire year, I'm going to be releasing one weekly video that focuses on an aspect of witchcraft, so that together we can learn about the practice in a simple and concise way. Today we're going to be learning all about what witches actually believe in. Do you have to be pagan or a Wiccan to be a witch? Are all witches Satanists or are they atheists? And is it even at all possible for a witch to be a Christian or a Muslim? In last week's video, we explored what it actually meant to be a witch and what the terminology referred to. We determined that to be a witch simply means to practice magic and to have a deeper understanding and connection with yourself and with the universe, or, as Really Mad Nomad so beautifully put it, a person who is aware of and can work with nature on a higher level. We discovered that witchcraft is predominantly a practice, more so than a belief system or a religious doctrine. So therefore, can a witch who practices magic also live day to day by the teachings of their religion? Do they incorporate these gods and these teachings into their daily witchcraft practice, or do they have to keep their religion separate from their craft? Let's have a brief look into some of the religions that a witch might follow. You may have heard of, or be somewhat familiar with Wicca or Wiccanism, a neo-pagan religion followed by many witches and introduced by Gerald Gardner in the 1940s. Gardner was a retired civil servant and also a member of the New Forest Coven on the southern coast of England. He published many books, 3 of which helped greatly to popularise the religion, and are apparently a fantastic resource should you wish to learn more about Wicca. High Magic's Aid, Witchcraft Today, and The Meaning of Witchcraft. I've actually tried to find these online as I'd love to read them myself at some point to have a better understanding. Reprints are nice and easy to find, but first copies have quite a hefty price tag. As mentioned last week, the term Witcher or Wicca is an Anglo-Saxon term that simply means witch. Wiccanism is a predominantly witchcraft-focused religion, and the religion and the practice of witchcraft therefore go hand in hand here. Whilst it is technically classed as a religion, there are variations in people's beliefs and practices, and some Wiccans simply like to call it spirituality or way of life. Let's look into the beliefs of Wiccans. Magic is central to the practice of Wiccanism, and many Wiccans create spells and may engage in ritual magic within a sacred circle, which involves creating a circle for which to form a sacred space and contain energy. And this can be done with salt, or simply visualized by the practitioner. Common Wiccan spells include those used for healing, for protection, fertility, or to banish negative influences. Wiccans have varying beliefs around the reasoning for magic, some stating that magic is a law of nature and simply misunderstood by science, whereas others state that we cannot know how magic works, and that magic is simply making full use of the 5 senses to achieve surprising results. A Wiccan may also follow the Wheel of the Year, a collection of 8 key festivals in the year to mark the changing of the seasons, such as Beltane, Samhain and Yule. They may also keep a Book of Shadows, a personal collection of spells and musings. Central to the beliefs of a Wiccan is morality, and practitioners typically present themselves as a positive force against the powers of destruction which threaten the world. A majority follow a code known as the Wiccan Rede, which states, "And it harm none, do what ye will," which is from a longer poem by Lady Gwen Thompson. "Bide the Wiccan laws ye must, in perfect love and perfect trust. Mind the threefold law ye should, 3 times bad and 3 times good." 8 words. The Wiccan Rede fulfill, and it harm none, do what ye will. This is usually interpreted as a declaration of the freedom to act, along with the necessity of taking responsibility for what follows from one's actions and minimizing harm to oneself and others. Many Wiccans also abide by what is known as the law of threefold return, which explains that whatever action is performed by someone, whether good or bad, is done unto them with triple force. It is similar to the Eastern belief of karma: whatever you put out into the world shall come back to you. Wiccanism encompasses those who are theists, agnostics and atheists, though commonly Wiccans believe in a duotheistic system, paying reverence to whom are known as the horned god and the mother goddess. To my knowledge, the horned god tends to be a representation of horned gods of ancient history, such as the Greek Pan or the Celtic Cernunnos or Herne. He represents the natural world, often associated with plants and animals, and is apparently an ideal role model for male Wiccans. The mother goddess is typically associated with life, spring and fertility, and is often portrayed as the triple goddess or the maiden, mother and crone. Wicca has been cited as the largest, best known, most influential, and most academically studied form of modern paganism. If you are a Wiccan yourself, let it be known in the comments below, as I'm sure we would all love to hear from you. Now, I wanted to talk specifically about Satanism next for 2 reasons: because of the usage of the term throughout history, and quite simply because the idea fascinates me. Satanism is quite a broad term, according to Wikipedia. Satanism refers to a group of religious, ideological and/or philosophical beliefs based on Satan, particularly his worship or veneration. During the witch trials, particularly from the 14th to the 18th centuries, accusations of witchcraft were often intertwined with beliefs about devil worship. People accused of witchcraft were believed to have made pacts with Satan and engaged in various malevolent activities such as employing demons to perform magical deeds and participating in nocturnal gatherings. At these Sabbaths, it was alleged that the women accused would engage in acts such as cannibalistic infanticide, orgies, and even sleeping with the man himself. These beliefs were largely fueled by confessions extracted under torture, which often led to exaggerated claims. Despite the widespread belief in witches' pacts with the devil, historical evidence suggests that these accusations were entirely baseless. The concept of witches worshipping Satan was more a product of societal fears and religious dogma than actually reality. Nonetheless, the legacy of these trials has left a lasting impact on how witchcraft and Satanism are perceived in modern times. You might be old enough to remember the era that was the Satanic Panic in the 80s, for example. Now, in the modern day, in the US and the UK at least, most of us are sensible enough to understand that witches don't necessarily worship the devil or eat babies. However, this satanic panic still lingers amongst some of us. Even when searching for witchcraft for myself on YouTube, as I keep scrolling, I'm often met with some interesting examples of how witchcraft is perceived. Now let's uncover what Satanism is actually about. Despite the stereotype that Satanists are dark practitioners of black magic who worship Satan and cast hexes and curses amongst their enemies, more often than not, Satanists aren't religious or witches at all. I'll admit I've not spent as long looking into Satanism as I'd like, as it's a subject I know very little about and would probably need at least a good month to fully understand what it's all about. So if any of you are Satanists out there, please do correct me in the comments, as I would love to learn from you. So from the little that I have learned, to my understanding, most Satanists don't believe in a literal Satan. You'd have to be Christian after all, as he does feature in the Christian Bible. Many followers are in fact atheist, and do not necessarily believe in any deities, the afterlife, and don't perform magic or believe in any form of the supernatural. My impression from what I have scoured online is that Satanism is more of a philosophy than a religion, and followers uphold Satan as a symbol of freedom, rebelliousness, and bravery. In the Christian Bible, Satan was violently driven out of heaven as he attempted to become equal with Jehovah, the all-powerful and only God in Christianity. He also famously tempted Eve to eat the fruit from the tree of knowledge in Eden, so that she and her partner would gain vast knowledge of the cosmos, of creation and destruction. Satan snatches the word of God from people's hearts, hindering faith, and he appeals to people's desires of pride, lust and freedom. So you can probably see why Satan appeals to people as a symbolic representation of breaking free from religious rules and rigidity, and how Satanism is a philosophical stance that challenges mainstream religious norms. It rejects hierarchical structures and arbitrary authority, emphasizing reason, justice, and truth. There are two main organizations that come to mind when I think of Satanism: the Satanic Temple and the Church of Satan. These are not to be confused with one another, as they are actually quite different. Whilst both call themselves a religion, the Satanic Temple is very much focused on activism and human rights. The Satanic Temple, co-founded in 2013 by Lucien Greaves and Malcolm Jarry, has their headquarters in Salem, Massachusetts, but have congregations all over the world, including Australia, Finland, Canada, and Germany. The Satanic Temple, like other Satanists, don't particularly regard Satan as an actual existing being, but rather they instead revere him as a symbol of rebellion against authority and religious control. They do use Baphomet in their merch and logo, and in 2015 unveiled a huge 8-foot bronze statue of him with plans to display him at the Oklahoma State Capitol in response to a statue of the Bible's 10 Commandments being erected. Despite a previous court ruling dictated that religious monuments may not be paid for with public tax dollars under the Oklahoma State Constitution, which forbids the state from endorsing a specific religion. If you're not familiar with Baphomet, he is a deity that has intriguing historical connections. He first appeared in trial transcripts during the Inquisition of the Knights Templar in the early 1300s. These knights were accused of worshipping Baphomet, which subsequently became incorporated into various occult and Western esoteric traditions. The name Baphomet is often associated with a symbol known as the Sabbatic goat, depicted as half human and half animal, representing the equilibrium of opposites. The materialization of him that we often see today is based on a drawing by Eliphas Levi, a French poet, esoterist and writer. In modern times, Baphomet is generally viewed as a symbol of the devil. The mission of the Satanic Temple is to promote skepticism, autonomy and curiosity. They're all about justice, secularism and standing up to injustice. Their website states, The mission of the Satanic Temple is to encourage benevolence and empathy, reject tyrannical authority, advocate practical common sense, oppose injustice, and undertake noble pursuits. They have 7 fundamental tenets, which can also be found on their website, and in summary, to have empathy and compassion, justice should prevail over the law, my body, my choice, respect people's freedoms, science prevails over personal beliefs, one must rectify one's mistakes, and the spirit of compassion, wisdom, and justice should always prevail over the written or spoken word, which I personally think are wonderful tenets that we should all strive to abide by, whether we're a part of the Satanic Temple or not. I personally think that the organisation has wonderful values, and their activism over the years have included advocating for freedoms related to LGBTQ rights, reproductive freedom, and bodily autonomy. And right now you can donate to their Name Our Abortion Clinic fundraiser, which I've linked in the description below. The Satanic Temple is a specific activist organisation, and I'm sure that many people would regard themselves as Satanist whilst not being tied to a particular organisation or group. And I have seen many Baphomet figures adorn a witch's altar here in the UK. As Satanism isn't a religion and doesn't have any specific set of rules, you could certainly think of yourself as Satanist whilst also practising witchcraft. One might influence the other. Perhaps a Satanist witch would cast spells for self-confidence, courage, and creativity. I would absolutely love to know more about Satanist witches, so if you regard yourself as one, welcome, and I would love to hear your thoughts and wisdom in the comments below. Some witches might feel more drawn to ancient gods and goddesses from the Greek, Roman, or Celtic pantheons, and choosing a god or a goddess to work with and integrate into their daily witchcraft can be a very personal journey. For example, in the Greek pantheon, we have one of the most commonly known goddesses in the witching world, Hecate. Known as the goddess of magic, crossroads, and the night, Hecate is revered by witches for her wisdom and connection to the spirit world. She represents the crone aspect of the triple goddess, and a witch might call upon her to aid them in protection or transformation rituals, as she is also regarded as a guardian of thresholds and liminal spaces. She guides souls between realms, making her a powerful ally for those working with spirits, ancestors, or the afterlife, and her connection to the moon makes her ideal for lunar rituals and divination. A witch might have a statue of her on their altar, where she is usually portrayed as having 3 faces, representing the maiden, mother, and crone. Or a witch might display Hecate's wheel, a symbolic form of a labyrinthine serpent around a central spiral, representing rebirth and renewal. It's said to reflect Hecate's connection to magic, sorcery, and the intersection of 3 roads as the journey toward inner discovery and knowledge. In the Greek pantheon, we also have Aphrodite, the goddess of love, beauty, and sex. A witch might call upon her for matters of love, romance, and relationships, and could use crystals and ingredients that could be associated with the goddess, such as rose quartz, rose petals, jasmine, or moonstone. From my understanding and my limited research, Roman gods and goddesses seem to be less popular amongst modern witches, but they could certainly be incorporated into someone's craft in order to influence their spellwork, such as Aurora, the goddess of dawn and new beginnings, or Diana, the goddess associated with fertility and childbirth. There are also various Celtic or Norse gods and goddesses that I have also seen revered amongst witches, such as Odin or Ceridwen and her cauldron of Arwen. You can probably imagine how invoking the help or guidance from a certain god or goddess could influence certain spellwork or rituals depending on the intended outcome, and depending on what that certain god or goddess represents, whether it be new beginnings, courage, lust, or creativity. We discussed in the last lesson that witchcraft is a practice rather than a religion, and that anyone is able to be a witch, should they wish to explore magic and ritualistic practices and create spells for intended purposes. So, it's therefore indeed very possible for an atheist or an agnostic to practice witchcraft, as there's nothing to say that they couldn't. But what about popular monotheistic religions, like Islam or Christianity? Unfortunately, I'm yet to find any good videos relating to witchcraft and Islam on YouTube, as I've only seen people reference black magic and how it should never be used. And for all of the articles I looked over briefly, I assume that any kind of witchcraft is forbidden in the Quran. I found quite a good opinion on it here that I'll share in the description, and it reads, "The Holy Quran does not permit witchcraft and in fact does not recognise it. If at all, it should be applied for the well-being of the people as, for instance, in the healing through hypnotism. To this extent, we support it, but otherwise not. However, if you know more than I do, or even if you're a practising witch and Muslim, please get in touch as I would love to hear from you." The question of whether witchcraft and Christianity can coexist has sparked controversy. Most traditional Christian authorities argue that the magical practices and spiritual beliefs of witchcraft are incompatible with Christianity, prohibiting Christians from identifying as witches. However, there are Christians who practice witchcraft within a Christian framework, and some people call themselves Christo-pagans, honouring Jesus and Mary and God and Goddess together. Hannah from Spirituality has a wonderful video that I highly recommend checking out for a more deeper understanding. She explains that she regards the Bible as she would any other religious text, that she doesn't take it too literally, yet still incorporates values and teachings into her life and practice. So to answer the question of what do witches actually believe in, a witch is able to essentially believe in whatever they want, whether they're a Wiccan, Satanist, Christian, or just an atheist who wants to have a better understanding of the power of nature and of the world around them and within themselves. I do hope you've enjoyed this week's lesson, and if you'd like me to discuss anything further that I may have missed in this week's video, let me know in the comments and I'll see you there.